Section 250.32 of the National Electrical Code, or NEC, addresses grounding requirements for detached buildings. Specifically, it mandates the installation of a ground rod in detached structures that do not have a metallic water pipe system. This ground rod serves as a grounding electrode, providing a path for fault current to return to the source, thereby helping to protect against electrical shock hazards. The necessity for a ground rod stems from the fact that relying solely on the grounding conductor that runs with the feeder to the detached building may not provide a sufficiently low impedance path for fault current. This is especially true if the feeder is long or if the soil conditions are not conducive to good grounding. A ground rod, properly installed, supplements the grounding conductor and enhances the overall safety of the electrical system. To comply with Section 250.32, the ground rod must be made of an approved material, such as copper, steel, or stainless steel. It must also meet minimum size requirements, typically 8 feet in length and a certain diameter, depending on the material. The ground rod must be driven into the ground so that at least 8 feet of its length is in contact with the soil. If rock bottom is encountered, the ground rod can be buried horizontally in a trench that is at least 30 inches deep. The grounding electrode conductor, which connects the ground rod to the grounding bus in the subpanel, must be sized according to NEC Table 250.66. This table specifies the minimum size of the grounding electrode conductor based on the size of the ungrounded conductors. The connection between the grounding electrode conductor and the ground rod must be made using an approved connector, such as a clamp or lug that is listed for direct burial. The connector must be installed tightly to ensure a reliable electrical connection. It is also important to protect the connection from corrosion, especially in harsh environments. In addition to Section 250.32, other sections of the NEC may apply to the grounding of detached buildings, depending on the specific circumstances. For example, if the detached building contains sensitive electronic equipment, it may be necessary to install additional grounding electrodes or to use surge protective devices to protect against voltage transients. Section 225.32 of the NEC focuses on the requirement for a readily accessible disconnecting means at each detached building that is served by a feeder from a main service disconnecting means. This disconnecting means acts as a safety switch, allowing the power to the detached building to be quickly and easily shut off in the event of an emergency or for maintenance purposes. The disconnecting means must be readily accessible, meaning that it must be located in a place where it can be easily reached without having to climb over obstacles or use tools. Typically, the disconnecting means is located on the outside of the detached building, near the point where the feeder enters. The disconnecting means must be rated for the ampacity of the feeder, ensuring that it can safely interrupt the full load current of the feeder. A 60 amp disconnecting means is a common choice for a 4-conductor subpanel, as 60 amps is a common ampacity for such panels. The disconnecting means must be suitable for use as service equipment, meaning that it must be able to withstand the rigors of being used as the main disconnect for the detached building. This includes being able to withstand exposure to the elements and being able to safely interrupt fault currents. In addition to the requirements of Section 225.32, other sections of the NEC may apply to the disconnecting means, depending on the specific circumstances. For example, if the detached building contains equipment that is likely to be serviced while energized, it may be necessary to install a second disconnecting means that is located within sight of the equipment. When inspecting a detached garage, it is important to consider a number of factors to ensure compliance with the NEC and to ensure the safety of the electrical system. Firstly, verify the presence of a ground rod if the detached garage does not have a metallic water pipe system. Confirm that the ground rod is of the correct material and size and that it is installed in accordance with Section 250.32. Secondly, check the size of the grounding electrode conductor and ensure that it is sized according to NEC Table 250.66. Verify that the connection between the grounding electrode conductor and the ground rod is made using an approved connector and that the connection is tight and protected from corrosion. Thirdly, confirm the presence of a readily accessible disconnecting means at the detached garage. Verify that the disconnecting means is rated for the ampacity of the feeder and that it is suitable for use as service equipment. Fourthly, inspect the wiring method used for the feeder to the detached garage. Ensure that the wiring method is approved for the location and that it is properly installed and supported. Copper and PVC conduit is a common and generally acceptable wiring method for this application. Fifthly, check the location of the subpanel in the detached garage. Ensure that the subpanel is installed in a dry location and that it is readily accessible for maintenance and repairs. Sixthly, consider the presence of other grounding electrodes at the detached garage. If there are other grounding electrodes, such as a metallic gas piping system, they must be bonded together to form a common grounding electrode system. Overall, a thorough inspection of a detached garage should include a careful examination of the grounding system, the disconnecting means, the wiring method, and the location of the subpanel. By paying attention to these details, it is possible to ensure compliance with the NEC and to provide a safe and reliable electrical system for the detached garage. Remember that the NEC is a complex document, and it is important to consult the latest edition of the code for the most up-to-date requirements. It is also advisable to consult with a qualified electrician or electrical inspector if you have any questions or concerns about the electrical system in a detached garage. The goal is to create a safe and compliant electrical installation that protects people and property from electrical hazards.